Imagine receiving the mission to build the largest ship in history, without a team of engineers, without cranes, without modern sawmills, and without a shipyard, armed only with wood, rudimentary tools, and the labor force of your own family. That was Noah's challenge. According to the biblical account, he and his sons worked for about 120 years on the construction of the ark, following detailed specifications given by God. The primary material was gopher wood, whose exact identification is still debated, but which possibly referred to cypress, cedar, or even a now extinct species known for its durability and water resistance. To waterproof the entire structure, pitch, a natural substance similar to tar, was applied both inside and outside the planks, creating a complete seal against leaks. The techniques used suggest advanced knowledge of carpentry and structural joinery, enabling the hull to withstand the pressure of gigantic waves without warping. All of this was done without nails or metal screws as we know them today, instead using wooden pegs, ropes, and precise joinery. The strength of this construction, combined with the meticulous care devoted to every part of the structure, turned the ark into an indestructible refuge, capable of enduring months of storms without the risk of sinking. For many scholars, the magnitude and precision of this work indicate that Noah not only received divine instructions, but also specific technical knowledge to carry them out. Now visualize being entrusted with the responsibility of building the largest naval structure in history without a specialized team of engineers, without lifting equipment, without industrial facilities for processing wood, and without an adequate shipyard, relying solely on raw timber, primitive tools, and the labor of one's own family. This was the extraordinary challenge faced by Noah. According to the biblical record, he, along with his descendants, devoted approximately 120 years to constructing the ark, meticulously following the detailed specifications provided by the Creator. The primary material was called gopher wood, whose precise identification remains a subject of academic debate, but which most likely corresponded to cypress, cedar, or even a now extinct species, renowned for its exceptional durability and resistance to moisture. To ensure the vessel's complete waterproofing, pitch, a natural substance similar to tar, was applied to both the inside and outside of the planks, creating a perfect seal against water infiltration. The methods employed demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of naval carpentry and structural fitting techniques, enabling the hull to withstand the pressure of colossal waves without deforming. This entire feat was accomplished without metal nails or screws as we know them today, instead using wooden pegs, sturdy ropes, and mathematically precise joints. The sturdiness of this construction, coupled with the meticulous attention given to every component, transformed the ark into an impenetrable shelter, capable of surviving months of devastating storms without any risk of sinking. For numerous experts, the scale and precision of this project suggest that Noah not only received divine guidance, but also specific technical knowledge to execute it flawlessly. Now picture opening the massive doors of this gigantic vessel and finding its interior organized so precisely that thousands of creatures of different sizes and behaviors could coexist harmoniously for over 12 months without chaos or extinction. This was the reality of Noah's Ark's internal organization. Research based on the biblical concept of kinds, that is, families of species rather than every individual creature, indicates that approximately 6,800 animals were taken aboard, including mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians, many of them young to optimize space and resources. The interior was divided into 3 decks, the lower level designated for large animals and herbivores that required more space, the middle level for medium-sized species and birds, and the upper level with areas for reptiles, amphibians, and the living quarters of Noah's family. The compartments were arranged to facilitate feeding and cleaning, with access corridors and spaces adapted to each category of animal. This organization not only maximized the use of the available space, but also helped maintain the vessel's stability by evenly distributing weight. The detailed planning of the internal layout shows that the Ark was designed to be functional, practical, and safe, ensuring that every creature had the ideal conditions for survival throughout the entire voyage, even in an environment completely isolated from the outside world. Now, imagine caring for thousands of creatures every day, without farming machinery, without processed animal feed, and without any automated equipment, and still keeping each one healthy for over 12 months. This was the extraordinary mission of Noah and his family inside the Ark. The secret lay in the ingenious simplicity of their management. Feeding was handled through semi-automated systems. Large food storage bins, strategically positioned above the compartments, allowed provisions to be distributed by gravity, saving both time and energy. The food was carefully preserved using ancient methods, such as sun-drying, smoking, and storing in airtight containers, preventing mold and spoilage. To save space and resources, young animals were selected, as they required less food and produced less waste, yet still retained reproductive capacity after disembarking. Herbivores and carnivores were kept in separate zones, with distinct feeding routes to prevent conflicts. Specific diets were prepared to meet the needs of each group, and some carnivores were likely fed with dried meat or even alternative foods available on board. In addition, special areas with microclimates were created for reptiles and amphibians, controlling temperature and humidity naturally through ventilation and compartment design. All of this demonstrates that, even without modern technology, the Ark's operation followed a strict logistical plan, worthy of the best animal management teams in today's world. Imagine a vessel completely sealed to withstand storms, yet capable of maintaining fresh air and adequate light for thousands of living beings for more than a year. This was the reality inside Noah's Ark. At the top of the structure, running the entire length, was a continuous opening called the Zohar, which allowed natural light to enter and created a cross-ventilation effect. Warm air, being lighter, would rise and escape through this gap, while fresh air entered from the ends, ensuring constant renewal without the need for fans or electricity. During rainy periods, this opening was protected by an angled cover, which maintained airflow but diverted water. This simple yet efficient solution worked as a natural climate control system, preventing the buildup of harmful gases and keeping temperatures more pleasant inside the vessel. At night, or on days with little light, torches and oil lamps were used in strategic points, always with precautions to prevent fires. The combination of these methods allowed the Ark's occupants to breathe fresh air and live in an environment lit well enough for daily work, proving that the design incorporated principles of bioclimatic architecture long before the concept even existed. Now, picture the scene. After more than a year confined at sea, the Ark's door finally opens, revealing a completely transformed world. The ground still damp, mountains partially covered in snow, and a landscape with no trace of the ancient civilizations. This was the setting of the disembarkation. The biblical account describes that, as soon as the waters receded and the Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, Noah first released birds to check if there was dry land and available food. Only when he confirmed that the environment could sustain life were all the animals set free, each returning to its natural habitat to restart the population cycle. This process was not merely a simple release. The order and planning of disembarkation were essential to prevent predators from attacking prey in the first days. Most likely, groups were released gradually, ensuring that there was enough food for all and allowing each species to find its place. Noah's family also began rebuilding, planting, cultivating, and establishing new settlements. This moment symbolized not only physical survival but also the beginning of a new era, with the mission to repopulate and care for an Earth that had been completely renewed. Reflect on the challenge of all modern life's diversity, originating from a limited number of individuals. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of the flood narrative, how genetics and biology intertwine with the divine plan to ensure the survival of species. Contemporary research suggests that all land animals and even the modern human race descend from ancestral pairs preserved on the Ark. In the human case, the descendants of Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives gave rise to today's ethnic diversity through natural processes of adaptation and selection. For animals, the preservation of kinds, ancestral groups that later diversified into hundreds or thousands of species, explains how only a few thousand individuals could generate the entirety of today's biodiversity. This genetic approach not only makes the account plausible from a biological standpoint, but also reveals a sophisticated plan that considers reproduction, genetic variability, and environmental adaptation. Furthermore, the distinction between clean and unclean animals, already codified in the Mosaic Law, shows that preservation was not arbitrary. Species intended for sacrifice or future consumption received special attention, ensuring ecological balance and long-term survival. Now picture the radical transition from a humanity accustomed to an exclusively plant-based diet to one that included meat, something that would transform habits, physiology, and culture. Before the flood, Adam and his descendants followed a vegetarian diet based on grains, fruits, and vegetables suitable to the biological design of humans. After the flood, as described in Genesis 9:3, God permitted the consumption of meat. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. This change was not only theological, but also practical, reflecting the new conditions of the post-flood world, where survival required dietary flexibility. The transition posed significant physiological challenges. The human digestive system, adapted to herbivorous eating, had to process animal proteins, adjust enzyme production, and gradually adapt to the new diet. Nutritionally, the diet began to include new nutrients, but also required learning about preservation, preparation, and safe consumption of meat. Theologically, this change symbolized divine adaptation to the planet's new realities, marking a break from the ideal state of Eden and establishing a new paradigm in humanity's relationship with nature and with God. The introduction of meat into the human diet also influenced social organization, cultural practices, and hunting and animal management techniques, representing a direct evolution of the survival conditions faced by Noah's family. Consider the flood not only as a historical or logistical event, but as a spiritual and theological milestone, filled with meanings that transcend physical survival. Every detail of the Ark, from its construction to disembarkation, reflects a meticulous divine plan, revealing principles of faith, discipline, and supernatural guidance. The flood symbolizes God's justice, the necessity of obedience, and the opportunity for renewal. Noah, his family, and the preserved animals represent the continuity of creation and the responsibility to care for life on earth. The rainbow, instituted after the flood, sealed the covenant between God and humanity, becoming a visible sign of mercy and divine promise, reminding us that even in the midst of destruction, there is hope and rebuilding. In addition, the narrative teaches resilience, planning, and active faith. Following divine instructions, trusting in solutions beyond human logic, and maintaining discipline under extreme conditions. These spiritual elements shape the biblical understanding of creation, environmental responsibility, and morality, offering lessons applicable to contemporary life, from preserving life to trusting in higher plans that transcend our immediate understanding. Now, picture a vessel filled with thousands of animals, all producing tons of waste daily, yet kept clean and healthy for over a year. This was one of the greatest logistical challenges Noah and his family faced. To maintain hygiene, the floors of the pens were sloped, channeling waste into troughs that led to central reservoirs located on the Ark's lower level. These reservoirs had gates that allowed for periodic emptying, ensuring waste did not accumulate and endanger the animals' health. waste management was integrated with the ventilation system, allowing constant circulation of fresh air and preventing the spread of odors or toxic gases. Furthermore, separate areas for each type of animal minimized the risk of cross-contamination. Daily tasks included cleaning, sanitary inspections, and maintenance of lighting and feeding systems, following a strict schedule similar to modern zoo or high-complexity laboratory operations. This extraordinary planning demonstrates not only human ingenuity but also divine guidance for managing situations that, without advanced knowledge, would have been impossible to control. Imagine life inside the Ark. 370 days of relentless rain, massive waves, and thousands of animals, all depending on the discipline of only 8 people for survival. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives followed a strict routine that included daily animal inspections, controlled feeding, cleaning of common areas, maintenance of lamps, and monitoring of ventilation. Each task was assigned with precision, creating a continuous cycle that ensured the survival and well-being of all on board. To withstand the intense noise, animal vocalizations, the creaking of wood, and the pounding of waves, the family insulated their living quarters with layers of absorbent materials, protecting rest periods and preserving mental health. This combination of planning, discipline, and active faith shows that the Ark was not just a vessel, but a microcosm of organization, engineering, and divine wisdom. Now, if you were impressed by the technical and spiritual genius of this project, be sure to share this video with others and comment below. Declare your admiration and faith by saying, "Amen, I believe in the power of God." And to continue discovering the mysteries of Scripture and the greatest biblical constructions, click on the suggested video on your screen and prepare for new revelations that challenge everything you thought you knew about sacred history.